Today my mom hinted that I shouldn't go to a water park with my family because she would be embarrassed of my psoriasis. Reddit. What's the most insensitive thing your parents have ever said to you? During a rather stressful moment in her life, my mom told me that I needed to watch my butt and keep my bags packed because if I ever came between her and my stepdad that I would be crap out of luck. I think I was around 11 or 12 then. She soon started this trend of taking out on me all of her frustrations by telling me what was wrong with me. This was a year or two after my biological father told her he really had no desire to continue any kind of visitation. I grew up as a guest in my own home, always ready to leave or get kicked out, not sure where I would go. I hope it is no mystery to her that my emotional connection to my family is casual at best. That experience has influenced me to not have children of my own, but to adopt. I look forward to giving a young person a safe place and forever home. I think I can do a better job of that than my parents. One of my friends held a friend of his while he died, after he had been hit by a car. My friend's mom, upon learning of this, then proceeded to say that'll teach you kids to do your drugs and stuff. You deserve this. This accident happened at work. No drugs were involved. Our friend was in shock and almost lost it when his mom said this. It was fricked. Whoa, it's getting cold in this place. I have cystic fibrosis pretty severely, and when I was young, 8 or 9 years old, my dad told me that he wouldn't acknowledge my disease until he buried me in the ground. I don't tell him when I go to the hospital anymore. On a related note, my sister told me that all anyone in the family expects from me is to die. This was when I asked her if I should go to college. I expect you to live. I expect you to do things meaningful to you and that bring you great joy. Tell them barrel ass said so. We were in the car going home. Out of the blue, mom blurted out, "Shakensenshin, you're not pretty, you know, so you better work harder and study harder, otherwise, how are you going to accomplish anything?" Oh, the society. Even women are misogynists towards other women. I had been dating someone for about 3 years, and my dad, not the nicest guy around, would randomly turn to me at times while we were watching TV and ask, "So how do you know your boyfriend isn't out cheating on you right now?" I always defended myself, but he would try to convince me otherwise on the basis of nada. My BF was a nice guy and there was no reason for my dad to think this of him. Because he's a better person than you, Dad. I made sure of that before I dated him. I was in Hollywood Video once with my dad. He had just had surgery on his wrist. They moved a piece of his hip bone to it and had a port from his hospital stay in constant need for pain meds still in his chest. There was a bag that contained the pain medicine pump that he carried with his good arm. The arm with the hurt wrist was in a sling. So we're standing in the store and he gets quiet. I ask him what's wrong. I just feel like everyone's staring at me. My heart broke. You see, I've had severe total body plaque psoriasis since I was 8 years old. I know what it's like to have people stare at you so mean. Just stare with no regard to you or your feelings. So I took my daddy's hand and told him not to worry about everybody else. That I loved him and he was fine the way he was. I told him everything he and my mom told me when I would come home from school in tears. And I knew what it felt like to want to take all that embarrassment away. Your story reminded me of this one. I'm not sure exactly why. Recently my little brother was diagnosed with psoriasis. His is total body too. If I could wear that extra skin for him I would. I hate that he has to deal with that. TLDR. Frick embarrassment psoriasis. You're a good person. I heard my mom talking on the phone one morning to her friend. After being her slave for my entire life, cooking, cleaning, babysitting, pulling A+ grades in all my classes, never getting in trouble, etc. She said she wished she never had me. That same woman who pushed me down the stairs a few years earlier. I got the frick out of there. Thank God you got out. One of my friends is adopted. He always tell the story of how on his 15th birthday his parents forgot his birthday present and as a last resort decided to tell him he was adopted. Great compensation. The present of truth. My father all but disowned me for marrying the woman I love. He still tries to convince me I've done something wrong every time we talk, which isn't often anymore. My mom and stepfather started smoking when I was younger. Somehow, growing up moderately intelligent in my younger years, they had me convinced it was normal. After casually mentioning it my biological father one day, he informed me that this is freaking bad, so he fights for custody, blah blah blah. So I move in with him and stop talking to that side of the family altogether. After almost a year, she decides to inform me that it's my fault my life got fricked up because I was being insensitive. See? Upvote for your dad getting you out of that situation. I dropped out of a university against my parents' wishes to go to an automotive tech school. When I graduated I didn't even get a congratulations from my mother. All I got was "So are you going back to school now?" That was 7 months ago. Since then she tells me that I am a disappointment and failure in her eyes several times a week. Man, that sucks. You can make a really good living at stuff like that. I don't understand why people have this issue. Frick, half the time I wish I'd skipped school and done something more hands-on labor-ish. I feel like I'd have more job satisfaction from doing stuff like that. Just be happy and don't worry about what's in her eyes. She's clearly going blind. Mom's a manipulative nutter sometimes, but I'm aware it's just her projecting her own baffling series of insecurities and neuroses on me. I love you mom, but dang, sometimes you're really strange. I was recovering from an eating disorder and had some serious body image issues. I was 5 feet 4 inches and at the time was 107 pounds. My dad, who is about 280, told me that I needed to start doing some sit-ups because it looked like I was developing a gut. Looking back, he is probably a big part of why I had such body image issues in the first place. I feel you. Body image issues my whole life. Bouts of starving myself and gorging myself. Hated my body, the whole 9 yards. No matter what, Dad never failed to lecture me about eating every time I even looked at the refrigerator. Frick that crap. As a person whose brother has a severe case of psoriasis, I can tell you that I don't care what he wears. He's had it since I can remember and it is something I grew up with. As far as I'm concerned, he's a normal person and if someone wants to ignorantly stare at him, be my guest. I tell him this all the time. Bro, you have nothing to be afraid or ashamed of. You do what you can and who cares who looks at you? I know I don't. Now, it's 102 degrees. Go put on shorts and a t-shirt and stop wearing those khakis and that sweatshirt. Because he needs to be comfortable with himself. If you're comfortable with yourself, then who cares? People don't have to look at you. They choose to. Thank you for being so good to your brother. Me and my brother have psoriasis. Whenever I need encouragement to wear shorts or short sleeves in public I call him for a pep talk. P. My mother told me she disapproved of my Asian girlfriend because she didn't want squint-eyed children. She said they'd get picked on in high school. By women like her. When I was 14 I was really into Van Halen. So were my friends. We would get together and put on air guitar shows in my living room all the time. They were absolutely our favorite band. Our local radio station was having a contest where the 51st caller, or something like that, would win 4 tickets to the concert they were playing in nearby Austin, TX. After calling and calling I actually won the tickets. Me and my friends freaked out and were so happy. When my mom found out I won the tickets she went down to the radio station and picked them up. She then told me I couldn't go and instead took her friends. I am now 39 and this still bothers me today. Find out what her favorite band is. Buy tickets. Hey mom, check it out. I got tickets to your favorite band. My friends and I are gonna have a great time. I have clinical depression. My mother is convinced it's because I'm worried she'll find out I'm on drugs. I don't do drugs. Before you diagnose yourself with depression or low self-esteem, first make sure that you are not, in fact, just surrounded by buttholes. William Gibson. I'm working QA in a video game studio right now, and for the first time in my 26 years of life I feel like I've found potential for a career. I could see myself moving on up in the industry, and I'm truly happy to go into work every day. We're nearing the end of this project, and just a couple days ago HR pulled a few of us aside and said we were being requested to stay on for the next project. I'm the only one on the team currently with no industry experience beyond this one stint. So I was beyond enthused to hear that not only was I requested, but that I was so good that they wanted me back. I was so excited that I mentioned this to the parents while eating dinner, for sure expecting some kind of encouragement and or validation that I'd finally found my niche in life. What do I get? That's all well and good, but are you seriously happy with the job? You're being paid just as much as someone straight out of high school, actually more like twice as much. How are you possibly happy with that? Freaking Asian parents, man. And they wonder why I have no desire to talk to them about anything concerning my life. I had a long-term hospital stay where I ended up losing 10-15 pounds. When I finally got home, I was around 105-110. My father refused to buy any food for me because I looked so good. Why would I ruin it? Similar situation. I had pulmonary embolisms and lost 17 pounds during the hospital stay. When I got home after 3 weeks, anytime my dad saw me eating he'd comment along the lines of good. Now you'll be sick and fat. He would also call me lazy while I was on bed rest and using an oxygen machine 24/7. My mom always had a problem with accepting anything negative in reality and things at face value no matter the amount of proof. It's like she purposely doesn't goes the opposite way to spite people including her children. I could be puking blood with stab wounds and she would not believe this was happening and tell me I was imagining things, or her expression tells me that her mind is wandering off to somewhere else. She would empathize more with a criminal than the victim by ignoring the crime and assuming or making up good things about the criminal. You can take 2 items and add them to 2 identical items to make 4, and she would not accept that fact and come up with or assume something entirely unrelated. The frustrating thing is how she can act normal when meeting new people or when under scrutiny from someone with authority to call her out on her BS. However, without fail, she will lose her new friends due to her crazy perspectives and inability to focus on the topic. This killed the family and any chance at adapting into a normal productive life. I'm suffering from several chronic diseases and my sibling is mentally handicapped due to a car accident. She hasn't to this day accepted this reality and instead becomes angry or demanding about why I can't do things every other normal person does. She has always been like this, and including the death of my alcoholic father due to her not wanting to accept reality and suggest treatment. Alcoholics Anonymous. It's deeply troubling and I spend every day wanting to die. I love you. Both of my parents think I'm gay. I'm not, and my mother has said to me before, at least your sister gave us grandchildren. It took every bit of willpower not to cry. Give them a jar of your sperm next time you see them. It's clearly all they want from you. Then they'll have no reason to be angry with you. The worst thing I've got is my mom telling me sometimes I regret your father talking me out of abortion when I was 14. In her defense, I was a mouthy little bee. I look back now and feel so bad for her. We've got a great relationship now, though. Mouthy little bee or not, parents are supposed to be a little bit more reserved around their children. My mother just used to say that I could drive a son up the wall. I graduated college CM Lord, and on my graduation day after the ceremony ended, my dad asked me why I didn't graduate Magna CM Lord or Summa CM Lord. P.S. I'm Indian. I suppose this isn't really terrible, but it hurt at the time. Ether how? I went shopping with my mother, around age 13, during a punk phase, brightly dyed hair, sloppy eyeliner, the usual. She makes eye contact with a colleague from her current job, and as the woman walks towards us, my mother grabbed the back of my head and shoved me into the center of a circular rack of clothes so her co-worker wouldn't see me. This one is actually pretty funny. It was wrong of her to do that, but being the smart butt I am, I would have moved the whole rack over to her friend and introduced myself as a rack of clothes. When I was in junior high, I wanted to go out for the gymnastics team. I'm short, I'm muscular, I've always loved tumbling, I have dang good balance, I'm okay with, both my knees are now fricked up, graceful, and I've always loved watching gymnastics on TV. I get home after the first team meeting where we're given the dates of the upcoming meets, the paperwork for our doc's signature, required for any school athletic team, and our parental permission slips. I tell my mom I have to have it all in by the end of the next week. The first words out of mom's mouth are, "So are you doing this so you can lose weight?" That just proved to me my mom had no understanding of what I like to do, and that seeing me go out for sports wasn't nearly as important as the number on the bathroom scale. In a rather crappy father moment, my dad once told me at the dinner table that my only purpose in life was to give him grandchildren. I believe I was 16 at the time. When I was in 7th or 8th grade, we did a medieval dress up day thing for my social studies class. It was some extra credit thing if you came dressed up and gave a little talk about who you were supposed to be. I wanted to be some noble lady, so I borrowed my mom's hideous 1970s wedding dress. Puffy sleeves with tight arms was totally medieval in my mind, also way too much lace. And when I tried it on at home, she made insinuating comments on how big I was and how the dress wouldn't zip up. I was already an inch taller than her and had broader shoulders. But that wasn't the problem according to her, it was because of I was big, i.e. fat. Lucky that was the last time she commented on my bigness, because right after I got my growth spurt and gained another 4-5 inches on her tiny 5 feet 2 behind. So nya to you on that front, mom. She could have just been angry that a middle schooler looked better in her dress than she did on her wedding day. My mum once said, "You know, I could have had an abortion." I told her to frick off and I walked out of the room. Another time she was on the phone to me and then set down the phone and didn't hang up. I overheard my stepdad telling her to kick me out of the house. I think I was 16 at this stage and admittedly being a bit of a crap, but not that much. No drugs, no drinking, just being a regular angry teenager. When I was a young, my parents bought my brother and I a beagle we named Sammy. After a few weeks, Sammy dug up my dad's garden, so he brought Sammy back. The hose at my parents' old house would squeak rather loudly when you turned it on, and my father would tell me that it was Sammy tied to some railroad tracks crying for me. My mom disowned me and my sister after finding out that my sister is in a relationship with a pre-op M2F transgender woman and is planning on marrying her, and I support them fully. Good for you. I support your support of your sister and her girlfriend. My dad said I've failed as a parent to me. I always felt like I'm complete fail, but this made my brain validate my thoughts. Mine said that too. I was just like, well, yeah. I came home crying one day in the 3rd grade after being called fat for the first time and asked my mom if I was. Her response, "You're fine, but if you lost 10 pounds you'd be really pretty." I was promptly put on a series of fad diets. Fast forward past several years of passive aggressive comments, criticisms, fad diets. My school contacted my parents concerned I was bulimic. Mom's response, "Why would you do that? If you want to lose weight, just stop eating like your sister. Sister has anorexic tendencies. You're just wasting money. Why don't you buy a pair of jeans 2 sizes smaller than you are now and just hang them near the refrigerator instead later on?" She mentioned, "If I could just put your face on your sister's body, I'd have one perfect daughter." The kicker, mom's a nurse. But this is the same woman who, on the day of my graduation from a respectable university with a dual BA degree, said, "Now you can get to work on a degree that's actually worth something." Best gem of advice: don't make the same mistakes I made. Don't get married and never have kids. Still hear that one at least once a month. But I get my revenge once a year with a passive aggressive Mother's Day card. I changed my major from chemical engineering to journalism for multiple reasons. Mainly, I love writing more than anything and I couldn't see myself being happy as an engineer. My mom told me to suck it up and switch back because, and I quote, "being an adult isn't about being happy." She also though I had severe mental problems for wanting to be happy in life and that someone was forcing me to do this because she didn't think my wanting to be happy on my own was physically possible. I have a somewhat large posterior for a guy, which strangely has worked out for me. Apparently some men or girls are as interested in such things as guys are, but I used to be very self-conscious, and to this day, when my dad thinks I'm in too good of a mood he likes to point it out. Next time your dad's feeling good about himself, remind him that he's never accomplished any of his dreams from when he was your age. My parents adopted me through an open adoption. meaning I have open communication with my birth mother and birth grandmother. Each year they would send me a gift and card with updates about their lives and questions for me every Christmas and birthday. One Christmas I was going out with friends but came into the house to grab my wallet and saw a big box in the kitchen that my parents were obviously discussing. I figured I would find out at Christmas what was in the box. Christmas came and went and nothing I received and nothing we gave seemed to be big enough to fit in that mysterious box. Even more strange, this was the first year in 15 years that my birth mother had not sent me a gift. I kept asking both my parents about the box and my present from my birth mother and they pretended like they had no clue what box I was talking about and reassured me my present should be coming soon. Months later and after many days of me sobbing and telling them I thought my birth mother didn't love me anymore and had moved on, my dad broke down and told me the truth. Apparently, the mystery box contained Christmas gifts that seemed too young for me and were addressed to the daughter of one of my birth mother's friends. She just made a mistake while shipping gifts. My birth mother and I have not talked since. I assume because she thought she sent me a gift and I never responded. I finally wrote to her a few years later but she didn't write me back. Part of me can never forgive my mother for letting me go on all that time breaking down over what I thought was the rejection by my birth mother when all she had to do was tell me there was an honest mistake when shipping packages. TLDR. I'm adopted. My birth mother accidentally shipped the wrong gift. My parents let me go on for months thinking she didn't love me or want to talk to me anymore rather than explaining there was an honest error. My dad once told me I was a wank gone wrong. It was the message in my birthday card. Actually, it was bloody funny. I love my dad. He was cleaning it and it just went off. Hit your mom square in the back. Bro, that is so mean. My mom thinks I'm her slave or something. Ever since I turned 11, my mom hasn't done anything. She didn't cook, clean, or take care of my baby sister. So being the responsible kid I am, I start doing all of that. I cooked ravioli, sandwiches, ramen, easy stuff. I cleaned. I took care of the little sister and younger brother, and I still got straight A's. All my mom did was sleep. She didn't have a job. She had no excuse, so I moved out. 3 years later, to give her a wake-up call, I now live with my dad and have a chance to be a kid instead of a mom. I have an uncle who has severe psoriasis. If anything, that should be even more of a reason why you should go. Everybody stays the frick away from you. It's awesome. Your mom's got issues. Screw her. I too have plaque psoriasis and long ago I stopped giving a dang who saw it. Live your life like a boss, my friend. I have psoriasis, psoriatic arthritis. Frick what anyone says. My parents refuse to accept the fact that they're the reason I've nearly taken my own life 6 times. They always try to blame other factors. School, GFs, ACT, when in reality those are the only things keeping me alive. They're constantly mentally abusive, and I really hate them. That's not a healthy relationship. Get the frick out of there. Gonna get buried, but it helps to get it out. My mom moved me to Kentucky and when I came back from visiting friends' family in Indiana, she was gone. Just gone. No note, no phone call. There was an eviction notice on the door. I will never forgive her for 2 reasons. 1. All my stuff, clothes and mementos from my sister who had recently passed away were in that house. 2. I was homeless at 15. Had nowhere to go. Ended up moving in with my boyfriend, who then started to beat the daylights out of me on a daily basis. TLDR. My mom basically caused me to be abused every day for 3 years. Oh man. Fortunately, my mum is great. My dad's mum, less so. My dad was a consultant pediatrician, GP, ex-Royal Marine, married a fine woman, raised 4 kids to do the right thing, worked 14 24-hour days and nights to make sick children healthy and was a pillar of the community. People named their kids after him. They even named their kids after me because I was his kid. The stress nearly broke him several times, but he did good. He's with his mum, sitting on the wall at the end of the 2-acre garden he's worked for. His kids playing as the sun sets over the trees and she turns to him and says, "You're such a disappointment to me." He asks why, baffled. She says, "I wanted to tell my friends that my son was a brain surgeon." My dad once yelled at me for not socializing enough. I was so depressed that I was mentally detached from everything that didn't involve wanting to die, and that really didn't help. My sister didn't want me to come to her 13th birthday party because I was a vegetarian. Mom and dad agreed, so they all went out for burgers. You don't make friends with salad. The night before my wedding, my wife's parents called her a selfish ingrate and that she ruined the wedding for them. Her mother refused to see her get dressed and then they both wouldn't talk to us at the wedding. This stemmed from the offering to pay for the wedding and then refusing to do any planning until a month before the wedding. We ended up paying for several parts of it, but instead of listening to what we wanted, they went overboard and spent stupid money. For example, $600 on decorative tulle. They still have 2 very large cases of it left over. My family was going to cook all the food, but they had to have a caterer. I had a DJ and I was covering the costs. They had to have theirs. $5,000 was our max budget we wanted them to spend. They claimed to have spent $12,000. At least they did, all over Facebook. But they also blew up the photographer's Facebook page screaming about the $2,000 they spent when I booked the photographer, and it was $1,100. For reference, my in-laws are not rich, but they are well off. They own their house outright, make nearly $200k a year, have multiple vehicles, a small boat, and her stepdad owns a small plane. At the rehearsal, her mother was being an outrageous bee to the point the photographer called her out. All my wife asked her was to stop complaining about how hot it was. TLDR. It's crazy what money can do to a family's relationship. My in-laws are not rich. They own their house outright, make nearly $200k a year, have multiple vehicles, a small boat, and her stepdad owns a small plane. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.